Valley with the Sports Flash on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio.
You like techno? I kind of like techno. I know you like Tri-City Sports Now, and I want to thank you greatly for that. Nominated Best Sports Talk Show host and show, Johnson City Press. Check out their Best of Johnson City ratings. Maybe I ought to give the URL in tomorrow's show, but I think you're smart enough to find it on your own. And validate your own taste. Please vote for us. We would be very, very appreciative. Because, again, I do think that we're changing sports talk in the market. I know that originally, I like to think that I had something to do with starting it. Being 19 years old, desperately wanting to get into the field, calling up Bill Meade a lot, driving people nuts, talking about the Steelers. There did a lot to learn when I was 19 in terms of a local show. And this was when sports talk was caller driven, and this was when sports talk was, it isn't anymore, to be honest. We don't even accept calls. I think I tried to the other day and just, it's like. But the other thing is that we had a circumstance with, back in those days where, it was about the true thing that Jim Rome always talks about being a talk show caller: have a take and don't suck. And there are, a lot of people, you hear sports talk shows and the ones around here that take calls. How many times is it, did team win yesterday? And I just go, and you couldn't buy a paper. You couldn't look on a computer yourself. This is a guy who's not, and I hear a lot of that around here. And wanting to be the friendly sports talk show host that so many around here want to be. Oh, yes, the team did win. No, unfortunately, the home team lost. You get a lot of that. But it doesn't advance conversation. It is, it's, we all kind of know this, and so, What you didn't hear was that when Johnson City plays Princeton, Johnson City has had a difficult time. Of course, everybody has really of trying to establish a step. But when Johnson City plays Princeton tonight, in Princeton, and takes on the Rays, the Cardinals are in first place by a half game over the Betsy-Town Twins in the Western Division of the Appalachian League. Pulaski Yankees lead the Eastern Division by 3 games over the Burlington Royals, who knocked the Twins into second place. Of course, the thing is that the first and second place teams make the playoffs, don't they? So, it's pretty much jumbled. Nobody's really out of it. Greenville is in last place. The standings are as such: Johnson City in first by a half game, Betsy-Town in second, then comes Bristol, Kport, and Greenville. So, there you go. Now, speaking of the Appalachian League, any old Elizabethton Twins fans out there? Maybe I shouldn't say old, but you guys have been around for a generation. Guys that maybe went to games back in 2007. 2007 is what we're looking at. And if you remember that year, the Twins had a pitcher. He was a right-hander from the Netherlands, and he was 7'1". Tallest pitcher ever to play pro ball. He did not make the major leagues. His career tapped out about 5 years. Played a couple of years of Cup of Coffee, AAA ball. The Indians organization, I can recall, was one of them, and such. This player's name was Loke Van Mill, and unfortunately, Van Mill has passed away. Van Mill was involved in an accident, and he is the tallest man to have ever played pro baseball, tied with Arizona Diamondbacks prospect Ryan Doherty, a Notre Dame grad, actually, who, well, maybe he didn't graduate. Maybe he did. I'm not sure. A Notre Dame product, played 2 years in the Diamondbacks organization, then 1 in the Frontier League, but his last year was 12 years ago, 2007. Unfortunately, Van Mill, who had just retired from baseball. He was 34 years old. He'd been playing in Australia most recently. But he injured himself, hit his head while hiking, and has passed away at the age of 34. Essentially, let's see here, he was left unconscious in nature for 24 hours after hitting his head on rocks. He was admitted to the hospital and received treatment for multiple fractures, hemorrhages, and bleeding of the brain, but was not able to be saved. So that's sad. A former Elizabethan twin from 2007, and someone who was very notable, Loke Van Mill, passing away. Let's see here. Like I said, he was from the Netherlands, so he's a Dutch product, but 7'1", you'd remember him. Appeared in 13 games, all as a relief pitcher. Didn't have any saves, 2-2 record, 3.75 ERA for the E-Town Twins in 2005. Like I said, about 5 years later, he enjoyed some cups of coffee in AAA. He was with the Indians organization, that sort of thing later on. In fact, he was the Indians organization pitcher at Louisville for the Bats with the Reds. And he was with the Angels as well. So he bounced around from various organizations. I looked at his numbers. He had a little bit of control problems. He wasn't real wild, but that was probably one of the main factors that kept him out of the big leagues. Because you think, what about that drop coming down from 7-1? I mean, you thought that Randy Johnson was intimidating on that bump at 6'10", or J.R. Richard at 6'8". And you see how fast they threw. I mean, come on, what about Loke Van Mill? But just, sort of like generation before, although not quite as bad, the legendary Steve Dalkowski, who started in the Appalachian League many years ago and was just too wild to make the majors, both on and off the pitching mound. And so, yeah. But Dalkowski was able to eventually right his demons. Unfortunately, Loke Van Mill died in a hiking accident at the age of 34. So our sympathies go there to a very, very notable former Elizabethan twin. In just a few minutes, it will be Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun of allfortennessee.com. Wanted to point out there was some talk here a little bit. I was saying about the NCAA and the changes that they have to make. The Big 12, for a long time there was a lot of belief that the Big 12, who only have 10 teams, and let's say, the American, who of course lost, Connecticut. Maybe they'd look to expand. Maybe they'd try to grow. The word now is, however, not expansion, but the idea that the Big Ten has had where they accepted Rutgers and Maryland, and just how devastatingly bad those, absorbing those two programs have been. They thought they'd get, New York and Washington as TV markets and would be very prosperous because of it, but it hasn't really worked out that way for the Big Ten. And maybe adding those teams on has actually, weakened the overall strength of the Big Ten. And so Penn State is the first team out of the college football playoff. Or maybe it's Ohio State. And they're looking at that. Now the question is dissolving teams. Saturday Down South has an interesting story about that we will get into. But first, it's going to be Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee. It's that time right now, 3 days away from the start of summer practice, and everybody's in first place. Everybody's undefeated, and hope springs eternal. Vols usually get positive press, but there's a lot of it going on right now. Is it justified? We'll find out next when Tri-City Sports Now continues.